Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the College Football UK podcast. Joined with me, as ever, is the one and only, the glorious Beard himself, Sam. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good.
And we
All
have
good.
a special guest with us this week. You may remember him from the Connor Stallions documentary on Netflix. We have the guy, Mr. Was it Mr. Ohio? What was his name? Mr. Ohio State.
No face, no name.
Okay, no name. But he's here with us also this week wearing that Basingstoke scarf.
Tavistock.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
gonna take this off. It's really hot. I'm gonna take the scarf off. I can't actually see out the sunglasses.
So exclusive on the College Football UK podcast, we can now reveal that the Ohio State guy himself was actually Egg the whole time, just trolling everyone from the documentary. How are you, mate? How are you?
I'm good. I am. I'm chomping at the bit to talk about college football because it's been a couple weeks since I've been on here, and many things have happened. So I'm assuming you've
Many.
all been glued to FCS football like I have.
Well, that's what I thought we were going to do. I thought we were just
Yeah,
going to cover the FCS.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Um,
a couple other things worth mentioning too here and there, but nothing as much as the FCS stuff that's going on.
no, no, nothing at all.
We do want to start though with a little bit of news. First up, I've got the biggest news of the week, so I don't know if you want me to go first or whether. Yeah, I can start. Okay.
Yeah.
Kennesaw State have just hired their new head coach. Um, where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? There we go. Jerry Mack is the new head coach of Kennesaw State. He will replace Mr. Bohannon after he was sacked a couple of weeks ago. The season finished on Saturday, and he was announced. I believe it was within like a day or two after. It was like Monday or something.
It was, it was the
Um,
Sunday because it was
it was
during
a
whilst
Sunday.
we were in the middle of the games, weren't we? Or
Right.
the games were just about to start in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. You are absolutely right. So that was announced. He comes with Power Four experience. He was at Tennessee, among a couple of other positions. Now that's the big news. That's the big news. And I'm sorry that anything you guys want to put forward now will pale in comparison. But is there any other news that you've got coming through right now? Or well, before we get on to the big story of what today is.
Um, how many of the Owls have hired new coaches? Because every Owl in FBS did fire their coach. And I think everybody in the American Conference, apart from Army, Tulane, and Memphis, fired their coach. So, what's the lifespan of a coach if you are at a school that's called the Owl in the American Conference? Is also a burning question I've got.
I haven't got the spreadsheet in front of me with that information. Um,
I'm shocked, Fletch. This is the sort of thing I would expect you to have a spreadsheet of.
it's on the other hard drive.
He's got the spreadsheet of stupid things Egg's going to ask me on a podcast, but he hasn't got that one yet.
There aren't enough spreadsheets in the world to cover that one at this moment in time, but we've got a few. I just chat GPT. What's the weirdest question someone can ask about college football or bring up about college football? And then I go, right, Egg's probably going to ask that at some point. That's going to be something that's brought up at some point. Um, do you guys have any other news? No.
UConn and UMass have released a joint statement on their trophy game this weekend that didn't have a trophy. And it's because the trophy had arrived too late, and the schools hadn't had a meeting around a marketing plan or sponsor. So therefore they couldn't give the trophy out.
Um,
So UMass showing the world yet again that they are a joke. Yours sincerely, UConn and New Hampshire fan.
there's a joke in there somewhere about the Cumble not having a trophy. Um, there are so many jokes. I think they all write themselves. Could someone not have brought forward a sock? Um, among many others. No, I'm not. I'm not going to get into that because that'll take up 30 minutes. That
Yeah.
nobody needs. Sam, have you got anything from this week?
Um, I mean, I'm sure we're probably going to come on to college commitments at some
Yeah,
point today,
yeah.
but I kind of just wanted to talk about one guy, and this because it's following on from, I think we talked about it a while back, or if we haven't, there's a through the NFL Academy, there was an Irish Nigerian defensive lineman called Lopez Sanusi who committed to Boise State in London a year ago, well, out of the academy in London a year ago. And another uh, player through the NFL Academy has also committed to Boise State this week in defensive back Arthur Debochi. Hopefully, I've got that right.
Mhm.
He is a Dutch Ghanaian defensive back, which I thought was quite nice. Like, showing that the NFL
Yeah.
Academy
Yeah.
is working and is, allowing these players that maybe don't get the opportunities or haven't in the past had the opportunities to be able to thrive and to become part of the NFL and well, hopefully become part of the NFL, but at least become part of the college football. So I just thought it was
Yeah.
a nice thing to raise because, and again, it's that sort of showing that I think the growth of American football around the world and the growth of inclusion of American football or the inclusion of people who aren't American into the NFL,
Absolutely. Do you
into
know
the
what?
college football.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant way to segue into the fact that the next bit we wanted to talk about was the commitments, and how today is early signing day. You will hear of a lot of players now officially signing with their schools, high school coming out, players coming out of high school, but also this is where flips are happening constantly. People who flipped a week ago are flipping back or flipping to someone else. There's so much flipping going on again, there are
Flipping out,
jokes in there written somewhere. There are
flipping
jokes written in there flipping heck, yeah. Uh, it's
Just
like it's like sorry, go on.
you saying that with your Mancunian accent for me was brilliant.
Flipping,
I really enjoyed that.
flipping brilliant. The But on that note, so six NFL Academy graduates have got signed with the college today. As you've already mentioned, Arthur DeBoche, who's signed as DB, signed with Boise State. We've got Akram. I don't have the nationalities in front of me, but you've got Akram El Nagmi, who's signed an O lineman who signed with the University of Pittsburgh. Andy Quinn, kicker punter who signed with Boston College.
Ooh.
Kevin Benton, defensive ender, signed with Long Island University. Isaac Ubaka, linebacker, signed with Lenoir Rhine University. And Iwole Thompson Umukoro, defensive lineman, signed with Eureka College. All
Ooh.
NFL Academy graduates, all off to college this year to play.
So just before we sort of go any further, would it just be helpful to sort of maybe just explain the difference? Obviously, at the moment we've talked about like committing to a college,
Yeah.
and now we're starting to see players sign for a college. So what's the difference between the two? So obviously committing to something and
Yeah.
signing to someone, and then flipping, which does happen after the some signings, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just something around that we could just talk about, just sort of explain it a bit more for anyone who's unsure.
So when you commit, you verbally agree to go there and it's not legally binding. So Michigan have had a guy who committed to them back in the springtime. He then decommitted and went to Auburn. Since then, Michigan have re-recruited him. E.G. Other guys have come to join Michigan, most notable Bryce Underwood, and have given him more NIL money. Let's not be naive here. And he's recommitted to Michigan. He can also then flip to another school because he's only verbally committed. When they are on campus, which Bryce Underwood is today at some point in Michigan, he's obviously the big headliner. He will officially sign for Michigan, essentially. He will enroll on the University of Michigan. He can still then decommit and flip until he starts classes in the the autumn time. Once they've started classes, we have to remember they are students. They cannot decommit and go somewhere else. It's also really important to remember as well that if someone is in the transfer portal and they are moving from a low academic school, E.G, not trying to pick someone out like Mississippi State, they will then struggle to enroll in an Ivy League school because their credits won't transfer. And that's been really noticeable within college basketball, where you've seen guys wanting to leave Arizona, for example, to then sign for Michigan, and they're not having a good enough grade to enroll at Michigan. So you also have to keep that in mind. It's very rare in football, but it does happen occasionally.
So maybe it's again just sort of where we see you sometimes get it where you have the images of high schoolers with all the caps in front of them. Is this the signing point? This is where they would choose that, or is that the commitment side of it?
That's the commitment side of it. So his name's escaped me. Matey boy that went to Nebraska, their QB.
Dylan Raiola.
Dylan Raiola. He originally committed to Ohio State, decommitted, then committed to Georgia, decommitted, and then committed to Nebraska. His uncle works for Nebraska and locked him in the house and followed him around for 2 weeks until he literally signed on the dotted line, and then kept tabs on him until he had enrolled on his college courses. So there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
Most of the high profile ones won't decommit and go somewhere else. Now they'll stay where they are.
His godfather though is a Super Bowl winning Georgia alumni.
Yeah.
Plays for, and I know he played for a couple of NFL teams. I know between Sam and I can't think of which ones he's played for.
I do have a feeling the Lions, maybe.
It might have been. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think he did much there.
He's not well known, is he? He's not a big star.
No.
While we're talking to the NFL also look really disproving at guys that are decommitting and flipping every 2 or 3 minutes. They see that as a personality flaw. So guys that are going to go to the NFL will commit and then will stick with their commitments as well. So if your school has picked someone up who's a 4 and a 5 star and they have got NFL ambitions, or they're talking about them as a generational talent, you've probably got them. While we're on the subject here, Arkansas have just flipped 2 of UCLA's recruits, a 4-star quarterback who's ranked number 19 in the country, and I can't see what the other position the guy plays. Just looks like the quarterback and someone else, but they've not said on 24/7.
Receiver.
A receiver. There you go.
Madden, Lemaliva, and receiver Jace Brown.
So at the moment, obviously, in terms of when you're looking on the recruiting database on the ESPN 300, which I know a lot of people use for like they were referred to like the 5-star recruits and such. At the moment, Bryce Underwood has only committed to Michigan. He's not signed. But then just looking at some of the other, I'm not going to go through all of them, but looking at some of the other big 5-star recruits, say Julian Lewis has actually signed for Colorado. DeCorian Moore has signed for Oregon. Neem Offord has also signed for Oregon, and Elijah Griffin has signed for Georgia. So at the moment, those are where it's at. The only one that I don't understand, and you might be able to explain this one to me because it's something I don't understand. Justice Terry, who is a defensive tackle has got list. No, so all the others have like the college image and whether they've signed or committed. He just has list.
Assuming that means he probably hasn't officially announced where he's going yet. I would assume, but I've never seen that before. A lot of this is coming from the basketball background, so it might be slightly different in football. But that's a lot of the ones I follow for recruiting basketball, because obviously it's a lot more. They kind of come in and hit the ground running for basketball.
So this is where he's had offers, but he's not made a commitment. Yeah, it looks like so he's had offers from Georgia, Florida State, so FSU, Alabama, Texas, Auburn, Arkansas, Florida Gators, Kentucky, Miami, Oregon, Penn State, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, UCF, and USC. And he has visited those first 5 schools: so Georgia, FSU, Alabama, Texas, and Auburn. Those are the five schools he's actually visited,
Yeah.
but he is not on as of today. He is not. He's undeclared. So be interesting to see where uh, he actually declares to in the next few years. Well, in the next few months, who he commits to and who he then signs with.
One thing I think is going to be quite interesting is just the NIL landscape. And how many times have we brought this up on the pod, right? And I know that most people by now probably sick of the comments because we're not going to say anything new here particularly, or I'm not going to say anything new here in particular, but it's just the lack of what's the word I'm looking for, regulation over NIL is probably going to lead to a lot of colleges going and promising a lot of things that maybe whether they can or cannot back it up, I don't know. But you're probably going to be dealing with a lot of young people who are more than probably most of the years having colleges turn up and say, we can give you this, we can give you that. It's going to make things very, very interesting where these flips are going. And I feel like it's going to not, it might help with just how big, how big some of these flips are going to be. And just how many schools can then come in and go, actually, do you know what? We've just figured out we found an old donor who runs quite a good, successful car dealership in the local area. They actually went to our school and they pledged 1 million or such and such. Going to be quite interesting.
Well, how much has Bryce Underwood been promised?
It's
Is it
reported as 10 million, but a lot of the people on the Michigan end of it have said that figure isn't wholly correct. So it's gonna be upward near that, I think.
Because obviously was that one of the things that someone was talking about is the fact that someone's received essentially like £30 million and 10 million of it was going to go to someone and they'd basically put this money aside for other things, but
Yeah.
that someone rich has basically just pumped a load of money into one of the colleges. So this is probably what you're going to end up seeing is there's going to be a lots of I want to say promises because I don't think there's going to be cases where people are going to oh well if you go and get this guy we'll promise to give you 5 million and then they're not going to get the 5-star recruit so they don't get the 5 million and then there's loads of problems with it and stuff like that.
The money's
Um,
normally already in a fund, but there is a good case actually in college basketball this season where a guy was under the impression that he was going to get paid it was 500,000 in one chunk. And I think it was Memphis said, no, you're getting it paid in three installments. You've cashed the first installment. And then he refused to play, left the school, entered the transfer portal, and has gone to play somewhere else now.
well,
So yeah, that there is precedent for that. So you are correct. Yeah, some school may sign someone and say we'll give you X, Y, Z.
yeah.
So yeah,
Right. Well, going on from that, and I'm sure we'll egg you and I. Well, between you and I think you'll mostly be able to just refresh every now and again 24/7. If anything happens, we can exclusively announce what happened last night. For anyone listening, on the actual day of release, we're exclusively announcing what happened like hours ago.
beep beep beep
So,
beep 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 beep. Beep. Ryan
um,
Day's been fired.
if only.
That could happen. We could wake up tomorrow morning and that be true. So that might not be a fake headline.
You're not wrong. Um, Also, just have you got the lottery numbers? Just on the off chance, have you got lottery numbers?
No.
Well, you could fine then. Fine. I'll just put a bet on that. So, going off, well, I believe there was a bit of an important weekend this weekend in college football.
I think there was.
Some games with some emotions. It was hate week. It was hate week this weekend, and we have seen some absolute chaos. I've just got Sicko's committee up here because they were doing a counter at the weekend. What did it fall to? 11 rivalry week skirmishes
Yeah.
this weekend. I think it was 6 flags were planted.
Something like that. I've got a slight issue with calling these things skirmishes. Now, I am born and bred in Devon, and I am just a simple country folk. But it doesn't really count as a skirmish if the person you're hitting is also wearing a helmet.
But it
Obviously,
does
there was Matey Boy from Notre Dame who did punch a USC player in the face on the face mask. That was a skirmish. Punching someone in the head who's also wearing a helmet is not a skirmish. That's just, I don't even know what you would call that, stupidity.
does 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 it get called a skirmish if one side gets sprayed with mace?
Yes.
That
Yes,
counts.
that's a skirmish. That
That's a
might be
skirmish.
that might be civil disorder. I don't know. I'll Google it in a minute.
I call that common assault, pal. Common assault. Misuse of police power, is what I
Well,
would call it. But
I mean, compared to some of the things that happen in this country, some guy punching someone with a helmet is completely different. We have guys that punch horses,
horses, yeah,
so you know.
which is which, by the way, if for our stateside listeners, because we have a few and we are so grateful for all of you. Google Newcastle Sunderland horse. One thing you will not be disappointed. A gentleman legitimately punched a horse in the face.
Well, let's
And
rephrase
then
it. He attempted to punch a horse in the face, didn't really properly connect.
no.
So the horse is safe, just for everyone watching there.
It was a
He
police
was
horse as
fine.
well.
Um,
Yeah.
and when you're done with that, also Google Newcastle fan and zebra, and that will just give you everything you need to know about the area of the northeast of England.
Hey,
No,
yeah,
the word you
strange
use,
country up here.
if you really want that experience to, well, to truly let someone know about the Northeast, the one word you need to just use is Greg's.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not proper pasties, are they?
Or Parmo. Parmo's a good one.
Parmo. That's a good, yeah, yeah. But we're not here. We spent too much on time on Thursday
I know.
talking about party food and whatnot on Hurdle the Line.
Yeah.
We're here to talk college football. We're not getting derailed by that. So lots and lots and lots of very, very fun football. I'm sure there are a couple of games that we can start with, that we can talk about and go on for a long time about. But let's build ourselves up to the big one and start with Syracuse, Miami. Syracuse defeating Miami 42-38 and quite potentially ruining Miami's playoff hopes.
I don't want to be the cocky Michigan fan, but do you think Kyle McCord would have been better in staying in Columbus? Because he's been quite good.
I think, not to give away the other game that we want to talk about in a little bit, but I think they win if Kyle McCord plays.
In fairness, I watched a couple Syracuse games this year, and I've actually been relatively surprised with Syracuse. And I wasn't. They've been threatening to do this throughout the season to pull off a big win against someone they shouldn't have. Kyle McCord has kind of grown into it. He had 26 to 36 in this game and 380 passing yards. Um, and I think it maybe blows open the fact that Miami have maybe been frauds. They've not really played anyone. Um,
I feel like a lot of other people felt like that after when you look at the the top 25.
With
yeah,
with all due respect, towards the end of this season, Miami's biggest wins, maybe you can now count Florida, but it was first game of the season. It means nothing. Your other two big wins are Louisville and Duke. Come on.
I was the ACC taken out Clemson, SMU, and Miami, and at times Louisville, and kind of maybe Pitt at times, has been really bad, and that's going to weigh Miami down here. Syracuse are not bad, but they're not good. And I said, not trumpet and trumpet, that Miami would find a way to balls it up at the start of the season because they did it last season against Georgia Tech. They lost to Georgia Tech again this year, and they've gone to Syracuse needing to win. They've got better, but they've still got the self-destruct button, and they showed that in abundance. Cam Ward has essentially just picked Miami up at times and just tried to carry them, I think, this season. And
The
I'm
problem is that going forward, knowing Cam Ward is likely to declare, they need to look at fixing
yeah,
that quickly because essentially the fact that they are relying on a quarterback to carry them, he's not going to be there anymore to do that. So they're going to need someone who's either going to step up to be that guy or hope that they bring in some good commitments or good trades
yeah.
because you
Everything
can't expect them to do it otherwise.
everything on the offensive side for Miami has been phenomenal. Cam Ward, their receiving core, Restapo and George in this game had 148 and 121 yards. George averaged 20.2 yards per carry. Um, that is scary stats. That should be enough. But then if it's on the defensive side of the ball is where it's letting them down again. Um, and Syracuse are going to beat you in the trenches as well. It's kind of if you took Miami and you took Ohio State and you put them together, you would have Oregon, but they don't, and that's why they've lost this game. Like Syracuse are not a good team. They're not a bad team, but they're not a good team.
Mm.
Although they are 9-3, so maybe we should chuck them into the debate for the playoffs.
Well, hang on. So who did he beat? Beat Georgia Tech.
To Syracuse.
Syracuse have lost to Stanford, so we can just stop the conversation there.
Oh, but they beat Holy Cross.
New Hampshire beat Holy Cross. We got knocked out of the first round of the FCS playoffs.
Yeah.
They lost to Pitt, but Pitt were pretty good then. They lost to Boston College. Their last three games, they beat Cal, UConn, and Miami. You flip that to start your season, and you're probably talking about them to do well. But
Sorry, I don't know. You guys talk about whatever crap you want to talk about. That's fine. I'm now looking at Holy Cross's season. Um, they've also lost to they have also lost to Rhode Island.
they
Or
were
I
really
say
good,
Syracuse, you've got Yale,
really good,
Harvard,
really good.
Lehigh,
Really
but
good.
they beat Georgetown, they beat Bucknell, they beat Lafayette, they beat fucking Colgate. And my first thought has been, right, so if we're going down this, can they beat because they beat a toothpaste?
In
Oh,
that case, New Hampshire should be in it because we beat Elon and he owns everything, including space.
You win. You win.
They're also Holy Cross are also really good at ice hockey. They're an ice hockey school. And Syracuse are a basketball school, so this is a null point really. Miami shouldn't be in the playoffs. They're frauds. No,
but they're not in the playoffs, are they?
no, they're not in the playoffs. They shouldn't. The only thing that Miami University have done the last few years is their men's basketball team made it to a Final Four and then fell off the face of the earth. Like, I don't know what Miami is trying to achieve as an institution.
And the thing I kind of want to look at here as well is just with the okay, Clemson are 9-3. Clemson may be in the playoffs come Sunday. But they have not, between them and FSU, they have not made a good case to the SEC to say, you know, when we sue the ACC and we're looking for a home, no, thank you.
I've got the This is probably not unpopular, but what I would think they should just let the ACC should let Clemson and FSU join the SEC or whatever, and then the ACC should get Memphis, Tulane, and JMU, and that conference would be amazing. Like no one would make to the playoffs. They would get one bid every year, but it would be amazing to watch.
Why don't you just tell Clemson and FSU that right now the Pac-12 are still taking them? So,
Yeah. Cal Stanford actually is a really underrated rivalry game.
um, with that in mind, some other game. Did any of you watch Georgia Tech?
No, but I know it went on for about a fortnight.
Yeah, I did sort of see that I wasn't watching it, but I kept up with the score. And didn't it have like
How?
7 overtimes or something ridiculous?
Eight. Eight
Yeah.
overtimes. Second longest game in college football history.
What's the first?
It was Penn State.
That
I
wasn't a trick
can't.
question. I genuinely wanted to know.
No, it was one of our trivia questions, wasn't it? That I put forward, so I should know this answer. Um, it was nine overtimes. It was Penn State. Somewhat, I cannot remember.
Um,
Penn State, Illinois. The game ended 2018. It was in 2021. Went for nine overtimes.
Well, they were only one off. That's pretty impressive.
Hmm.
So obviously there were in OT5 there were two lots of 2 points scored.
they have to go for 2 points at a certain point, don't they, in OT? I don't know
Hmm.
how many OTs it is.
Right, okay. That
Um,
makes more sense.
Yeah, it
because
becomes like a little shootout, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's how the best they figured out they could do an actual play, but also it's like a penalty shootout.
yeah.
Mm,
Because instead of letting Haynes King use his legs, they started trying to get him to throw to make passes on the 2 point conversions. Um,
mm.
which kind of negates having Haynes King as your quarterback because he's not a missile passer, is he? You guys would have seen him when you went to Ireland.
Yeah.
He's very much run and then run first, throw the ball second. He
I don't
did
know.
get
He looked like
300.
a missile passer. When DJ walks off the field and then he Haynes King comes on, you feel like you've now got a missile. It's like going from a paper aeroplane to a real aeroplane.
While we're on the subject of FSU, they have actually also managed on the final day of the season to score more points than Aston Ginty this season. So congratulations, FSU.
Well done.
Final
One of
day,
them does have a game at the weekend, though.
yes, in the regular season. So Aston
Yeah.
Ginty probably may finish with more points than FSU, but in the regular season, FSU dug
Okay.
deep on the final day of the season.
Okay. Fair enough. But
I
that
think probably
Georgia,
Sorry,
sorry, go on.
Gary.
with that Georgia game, probably what is maybe if you're looking at players going into the draft again, Carson Beck. I know he's not exactly he's had a poor season by his standards. He did manage 65% completion, nearly 300 yards for 5 touchdowns. So they're good stats. Like I mean, he
Yeah,
had I would say a passer rating of 161.5. So I think you know potentially going into the playoffs and the championship in that with that game is a good thing for him personally. The way that obviously, and again, we'll be coming on to it later, but the way that the college playoffs are going to happen, and from what I've seen, I am not happy about that. So we'll see. But it's a good thing for him in terms of setting out his stall for a team to come and get him in the draft.
Yeah. I will say this though, I watched the game live until towards I made the mistake at the end of halfway through the third quarter when George when sorry no just into the fourth quarter when Georgia Tech went up 26 and said, well, Georgia aren't doing the second half thing this time, so game over. Congratulations, Yellow Jackets. You opened my year. I even said to Chapman previously, I was like, look, I'm sorry, but I've seen Georgia Tech live this year. I'm rolling with Georgia Tech because why not? I kind of thought that this game was done, but then Georgia went and pulled it back after scoring a touchdown and missing the PAT. Oh no, no, missing the 2 point. Missing it was a 2 point conversion that they didn't make.
The the summary on this for just for the second quarter is should have probably given away the fact that this game was going to be all sorts of weird because you had Georgia Tech field goal, Georgia punt, Georgia Tech then turns it down on downs, Georgia then turns it down on downs, Georgia Tech missed a field goal, Georgia punted, Georgia Tech touchdown, Georgia fumble, Georgia Tech touchdown, Georgia downs, end of second half, second quarter. Then you to open the next half, the third quarter, you had punt, fumble, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, 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 fumble, touchdown, downs, end of game.
Yeah. I also apologize because it was when Georgia finally got their first set of points that they missed a 2 point conversion. This was in the third quarter. Um, but it was such a good game because again, like you say though, you go into the game ended with 4 touchdowns. Uh, Georgia touchdown, Georgia Tech touchdown, Georgia. But then you go into the overtime and it's touchdown, 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 touchdown. And it just kind of felt like the longer the game went on, it's like a bus. You wait all day for a bus and then 4 touchdowns turn up at once. I think that's how the phrase goes.
Looking
Yeah,
at Georgia Tech season, they are potentially the most Jekyll and Hyde team, I think, in college football, aren't they? Beat Florida State, as we all know, in Dublin, beat Georgia Southern, then lose 31-28 to Syracuse, beat VMI,
Mm-hmm.
lose
To Louisville.
31-19 to Louisville, then beat Duke, beat North Carolina, get absolutely destroyed by Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, beat Miami, beat NC State, then lose in the world's weirdest game to Georgia. I might become a Georgia Tech fan. You never be bored.
well, you're a Michigan fan. Surely after this season, that can't be boring.
Yeah.
There's never a dull moment at Michigan in all sports.
It certainly looks that way at the moment. Um,
I just like being hated as well.
we'll get on, but we'll get on to. Well, I can make that happen for you anyway.
Cool.
So
Can I talk about my favorite game of I can't even say it, rivalry week.
go for it.
Just got to find it on here. Let me find it. It's going to be really surprising. No one's actually going to think this is the game I'm going to say.
It's got to be like Pineapple State versus.
No, it's not. It's a D1. Where is it gone? Oh, that's why, because it's not on there. So why does ESPN only show me the top 25 games? I want to see everything. Right, okay, and here we go. I would like to talk about Utah against UCF.
Right.
Utah won 28-14. I think that this was on Saturday. It was in Utah. And I want to talk about this because Utah have now taken a commanding lead into the all-time stats for this rivalry. So much so that UCF fired their coach, or their coach decided to leave. Because this is the first time the two schools have ever played each other. How is this a rivalry?
It's not a rivalry. If this is the first time they've ever played each other, how can that
No,
be a rivalry game?
it's in rivalry week. It's got to be a rivalry.
Have they just made up a rivalry?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they basically Utah joined the Big 12 late, didn't they? They had to redo the schedule, so they just made Utah play UCF on Thanksgiving weekend. But yeah, it's the first time they ever played each other. And even the Sickos committee admitted that they couldn't really bother to watch this game. So yeah, I would just it just tickles me the fact that Utah and UCF could not be any different, and they played each other in rivalry week. And after I picked Utah to win the Big 12, they've been absolutely awful as well.
At least they got a win, though.
They did get a win. They got a win against UCF. Although Utah did play their rivalry game like 3 weeks ago, so why couldn't they play BYU? I don't know. But anyway, sorry for Fletch.
No, it's absolutely fine. Well, and Kennesaw State. We'll go on to the big one, the actual big one that you pretended that Kennesaw State was not the big one. There, and Kennesaw State is. They got battered 33-0 by Louisiana Tech in what is also an extremely difficult rivalry game for the Mighty Owls, who now also are down 1-0 in the all-time series.
I thought your rivalry was supposed to be with Jacksonville State. I thought that was the one I've always read online was the one you're supposed to like. You didn't even score. You got shut
When
out.
when you're as big as Kennesaw State, but everyone's a rival and no one's a rival, it doesn't really matter.
Kennesaw State is kind of becoming a basketball school, though, isn't it? Because they're doing quite well in basketball. So just fall back on that. Just say that now.
I mean, that's just what we do. We excel in all of them. Uh,
You beat Rutgers as well, which was one of the surprise. You've basically destroyed the Big Ten. Like you've made Michigan's life more difficult in men's basketball.
it's just again, it's just what we do. It's just I can't explain it. It's just what we do. But going off then, and you got throw out shout out there to Nick, by the way, as Notre Dame beat USC. Did any of you watch? I did not watch this game at all.
I
No.
saw the punch to the face, the actual scuffle, but I didn't watch anything else.
Which still, like, is his hand okay?
He didn't hit him and then go, oh, right. So you got to give him that.
Well, that's true, but I reckon there was one of those. I think we've all done it. All of us in this room are parents. We've all walked away and had to do the kind of the whole motherfucker,
Mm.
motherfucker. Ah, but you can't say it. You can't show anyone that you've just hurt yourself. But you could just go.
While we're on the subject of Notre Dame as well, East Carolina have got more manners than Notre Dame because they lost to Navy. But I
They
want
they
I
like
want to
freedom.
yeah, I wanted to ask Nick what's his thoughts about Notre Dame in the playoffs. So Nick, if you are watching, please do let me know because I need to put a bet on for the playoffs and I
Uh,
refuse to bet on anybody in the SEC and Big Ten. So you're kind of the de facto guys at the minute.
We could always go for Boise.
I could go boys.
Ashton Gianti masterclass.
Yeah, but as soon as I put money on Boise, UNLV will win the Mountain West, won't they?
Yeah, probably.
yeah. So be well, if that's the case, do whatever works against your favor. So if you want a
Yeah.
team to win or do well, bet against them.
I'm going to bet on Kent State to win a game next season.
You're just pissing money away. Um, I wish I had money like that to burn. But looking at, are there any other games this weekend? Took your fancy, Sam? Do you want to talk to us about Texas
Yeah.
A&M?
Um, I mean, to be honest, it was a bit of a it was a nervy game to watch, knowing that if we were to lose that match, we could have potentially been out of the SEC championship. Um,
Yeah,
but as the game went on, we kind of just we managed the game well, and I think in the end, I mean, we kept Texas A&M out of the game. To be honest, I think they only had looking here now 248 passing yards to our 458. First downs, we had 26 to 15. Third down percentages was 46 to 36. Red zones, 3 of 5. They had 0 of 2. We did give away more penalties, though. But, hey, oh, no, we didn't. We gave away less penalties, should I say. So, overall, I think every single stat, apart from percentage completions in passing, we won
yeah.
on all of them. So, we just sort of managed the game well. I don't think Quinn Ewers was at his best game, but again, he managed the game as best as he needed to. I did love watching Arch Manning get a rushing touchdown. Came on for one play, well, a couple of plays, and one of them was him just getting a rushing touchdown. So I was happy with seeing that, and I think the one thing that I've take from this, and I don't know if Gunnar Helm um is going to declare this year, but I think he is one to look for in the future as a tight end because the way he has been playing this year, he's been unbelievable. I think um he's our leading touchdown scorer this year. I think I'd have to double check, but he's definitely been one of our better players.
Yeah.
So if he isn't going to declare this year, in future years, obviously look out for him. But if he does, um, I think he has the qualities to be a very good tight end in the NFL.
I I've seen some of the clips of Arch Manning after he scored that touchdown. And my only thought out of all weekend to do with Texas was a Manning with this much culture and athleticism just doesn't seem right to me. Something's up about it. I don't know if every single ounce of culture and athleticism that was in the Manning gene pool was just simply given to Arch, or whether, or what. But just seeing him celebrate with his teammates on the side was just like, Pey Peyton wouldn't have done that. Peyton wouldn't have done that.
Um, Looking at your touchdown numbers for the year, according to this, Matthew Golden got eight. He's the highest wide receiver. Um, was this Gunnar Helm? Did you say was that the guy?
Yeah, there was some stat that we were on about that he was leading in. Maybe
He
it
got
was yard.
he got
Yeah,
600 yards, so it must be yards. He
yeah,
got five touchdowns. Your running back got 10 touchdowns.
yeah. So yeah, it was the yardage that I knew he was leading in one of the stats. I just couldn't remember which one it was. Um,
40 for 48 carries, 600 yards.
yeah, so he's averaging 12 and a half, which isn't too
Yeah.
bad. So he's our leading receiver in terms of receptions and yardage,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah,
According to
not
this
bad.
metric, Quinn Ewis has got minus yards for the season on rushing.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Um, what?
I think because of this, it depends what app you're on, but I think in college football they record sacks down as rushing yards.
Ah, okay, that's probably yeah. Then you kind of would assume that a lot of QBs would be that.
Uh,
This rivalry, because I'm always fascinated with SEC rivalries and yours. Is this? Do you hate Oklahoma more, or is it Texas A&M, or is it like a bit like us and Sparty? Like we just don't want to lose to them.
There's a lot bigger a rivalry with Oklahoma than there is
Yeah.
Texas A&M. I still think there is a rivalry there. I think it's mainly just because it's North v South.
Yeah.
But it's
can I?
not. It's certainly not as big the uh,
So
as big as the other one,
if
we've sort of kind of dominated it significantly. I think it was 77 to 37 to 5. So
if you were to put it in terms of UK base, right? So I would say what you've got there is Oklahoma, Texas is Liverpool, Man United. Texan A&M is Man United, Man City. We were the noisy neighbours that just don't want to lose to you. I don't We don't want noisy neighbours to yap, but they're the real rivals because they're the ones that we have the problem with. You're
Mhm.
just the noisy neighbours
But
type thing.
bearing in mind, we've not played Texas A&M since 2011. So it's been 13 years since the last time we played them. And when we played them last, we beat them 27-25. So, and then before that, they beat us 24-17. So I think they had a period in the 80s and 90s where they sort of, looking here, there was one, two, three, four, five,
Well,
six, seven, eight,
they
nine,
went to
11.
they
11 games out of, sorry, 10 games out of 11, they beat us in a row. So they went 6 games unbeaten, and then we won in 1990, and then they went another 4 games unbeaten.
well they would have that rivalry would have stopped every year because they went to the SEC years ago, didn't they?
Yeah.
But just to kind of go through a couple of the other ones, because there is one I really want to hit on, and I do realize maybe need to pick up the pace a little bit on the episode. One big one, genuinely important one for many reasons, was Farmageddon, in which Iowa State took up their record to 10-2 with an eight and against an now 8-4 and a now 8-4 Kansas State after winning 29-21. The reason is significant is why, gentlemen,
Ireland.
because this exact game will be played on the 23rd of August in Dublin, Ireland. So I don't know about you, gentlemen, but I will be going to see. Well, I will be going to see that one.
I would quite like to go to this because I'm a fan of Avery Johnson, so I would quite like to go. But it's cost will be the big thing for
Yeah.
me.
But do you know what? Genuine, not to start so about it. I calculated that the vast majority of the time it's cheaper to go to somewhere like Ireland. If you can get like Ryanair flights or something that are
Mm.
relatively cheap within a bit of good time in advance. The only problem is staying overnight. If you wanted to stay overnight, you've got very little option for it to be expensive unless you knew a couple of other people going and you could split on an Airbnb or something. Um, sorry, just to clear my throat there.
And the year after this one is Pitt, Wisconsin.
Yep.
As a Cleveland Browns and Michigan fan, that is a world of pain to try and work out which team you want to win that.
Well, there's also as well the fact that the Steelers are going to be in Ireland next year or the year after.
Don't
That's
know what that
actually
is.
a really good point.
Don't know what that is.
It's a
They have
country
announced it.
next to, like, if you go towards Wales
Yeah,
and there's a bit of water, and
yeah.
then that's
I
an
know.
island.
If you keep going up the water, you fall off the edge. Like I'm from Devon, but I'm not stupid.
We're not
But
going down
yes,
that rabbit hole today. We're not going down that rabbit hole.
they
That's another podcast.
I have one final game before we get to the game that I wish to talk about, and that is Slippery Rock beat Kutztown as well, 25-24 in the D2 playoffs.
Slippery Rock.
And I bring up Slippery Rock because it will be a nice segue into Michigan. At every Michigan home game since 1957, Slippery Rock's results have been read out, and Slippery Rock are the only team to have played at the Big House other than Michigan. They've played here three times, and the D2 attendance record is Slippery Rock at the Big House. So a few weeks ago, when I was bringing up random D2 schools just to amuse myself, I actually stumbled across one that me and Fletch should be a fan of because it sounds like our little brother.
It it does, but like the nice little brother, the one that you actually kind of bring with you to places, not the little brother that's just kind of an embarrassment to the family,
Like Michigan State.
like Michigan State.
They play Cal PA on Saturday as well.
Let's go. Right, we'll be watching it, I think. Um, so then the game.
The game.
The game. So we start with the hail to the valiant victors, hail to the conquering heroes, hail, hail to Michigan.
The only team from Columbus that isn't a disappointment to everybody in the entire world. Anybody on the podcast listening to the audio of this, I am holding up a Columbus Blue Jackets
The
jersey.
Dallas Cowboys, isn't it? Wait, no.
No, not that
That
Cowboys.
looked like that looked like they looked like the Dallas England Patriots.
It does look like something Team
Yeah,
America would wear,
it's
but move
it's
on.
when you go on holiday to Turkey and you ask for a jersey,
Yeah,
when you order it off DH Gate.
the Dallas
Um,
Patriots.
yeah,
The Dallas Patriots.
yeah. Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones just don't work together. Like, that's not a collaboration anybody wanted. The worst thing is though, like that. No, no, that's that again. That's what we're another day. The game, Michigan were 3-score underdogs. 3-score underdogs. Rocked up into Columbus, Ohio, and put it this way, planted a flag at the end of the game. Talk to us about it.
I don't even know where to start. I don't know if I want to just rinse. I put my sunglasses on because the stats are hurting my eyes. I don't know if I want to rinse Ohio State or just talk about us to start with. Um, this I was saying this before we recorded. I've been a Michigan fan since 2012. I went until 4 years ago. We lost every year to Ohio State. This is the one time we've gone into a season, and I have already talked myself into the fact that we have lost this game. And I think 99% of Michigan fans
Hmm.
had, whether they were admitting it or not, is very different. I am astounded at that some point last week, Chip Kelly walked into Ryan Day's office and said, I've got it. I know how we're going to beat Michigan. We're going to out tough them and we're going to run the ball. And Ryan Day went, that's it. That's going to win us the game. I am. There was such a narrow path for us to win this game, and everything had to fall right. And even by Michigan standards, this is the biggest, and excuse my language, the biggest shithouse job that a school like us has ever done. And even when I, like the cocky, arrogant Michigan fan that I betray, because I am a cocky, arrogant Michigan fan, even I was lost for words when Will Howard basically threw that final ball into the ground. I still think this is a fever dream, and I'll wake up at some point in a minute. I can't actually believe we've done it.
Yeah,
I'm genuinely astounded that they were that bad and that they literally played into our hands.
yeah. That was the thing for me was you walked into a game and said, right, what are our strengths? These are our strengths. What are their weaknesses? Though their weaknesses are exactly what our strengths are. This is really good. Well, what are their strengths? Okay. And what are our weaknesses? Okay. That's the one we're gonna do. We'll do the second one. We are Michigan have a depleted secondary. Well, the secondary wasn't as good with, and then you take out Will Johnson, one of the best corners in the country. You have a depleted secondary, and then you have Jeremiah fucking Smith. You have Jeremiah Smith, who, for all intents and purposes, because I can be nice when teams like Ohio State have good players, I can turn around and say someone like Jeremiah Smith is fucking very fucking good. You say, right, you've got a depleted secondary and we've got Jeremiah Smith. So what we'll do is we'll let you all go over there and have a tea and a biscuit and we'll let the trenches battle it out. You idiot.
They listening to the Joel Keats Platz show, he kind of did sum it up the best. Ohio State go into the second half, realized that their defense was playing lights out, and they lent on that to win them the game. And Michigan had said all the way in lead up to the game, all the coaches, everybody surrounding the program had said, if we get into the final quarter and it is a level game, we will win this. Not we. The big emphasis there is if. And there was such a fine margin for us to get into that. And Ohio State did that. They spent $20 million on NIL. They got the they've got the best wide receiving core. They've got so much talent on that defense. It's scary. And then they went to Poundland and got a quarterback and a kicker. And it's like I don't. Warren Davis averaged 3.9 yards per pass. I don't mean to be rude, but my toddler could throw further than that. Like it's Ohio. This is the biggest embarrassment for Ohio State ever, and Dave Portnoy was obviously taking the mick, but it does feel like the rivalry's dead now because we beat them the last time it mattered for the four-team playoffs, and we beat them now when we're literally nothing. Like
Alan,
we need to get Notre Dame back on the phone and be like, can we play you every season again? Because it's or Texas
oh,
or someone because like
no, not again.
this is
I don't want
pointless.
Texas back. No, thank you. Sam, you can stay over there.
Why Texas, Oregon, Illinois, and Indiana basically said to Ohio State, here you go. This is how you beat Michigan. And Ohio State went, no.
Well, I was gonna say I'll kind of end it with what I text you on. I believe it was Saturday. No, it wasn't. It was Monday. I got home, was watching some clips, get some stuff done. I'd been out in the morning, and I watched Rich Eisen, who I did not realize until Monday that he is a Michigan alumni. I'll read you a quote from Rich Eisen that made my day. Four in a row. Didn't see it coming. Certainly this past year when Michigan had all the house money and all you had was the NIL money. Uh, that was a burn. 12 million that you thought was going to be spent to make sure that this didn't happen again. And it did. Mic drop. Hand Ryan Day a lifetime contract. That man is either working with North Korea or Russia, one of the two. He is a spy. He is on something. Whatever it is, keep him up, keep it up. Lifetime contract, and not only did we beat you while we were terrible, Bryce Underwood's rocking up next year with a few more people. Long may this continue. Long may this continue.
And if they can't fire Ryan Day because he's made it to the playoffs, you don't fire a coach who's made it to the playoffs. And hopefully, and if Ohio State do win the playoffs, fair play to them. But you've gone 10-2 in a conference that you should theoretically be winning, and you've lost to not even a Michigan with one arm tied behind our back. We basically turned up to play an army that's got tanks, rockets, and we turned up with a spoon, and we still beat you.
That's one hell of an analogy. I cannot lie. That's my favorite analogy of it all. But not to keep talking about how just so goddamn bad Ohio State are, because I'm sure we can do it, and I know Sam's desperate to. You can see it in his eyes that he's desperate to. But I want to talk to you all a bit, talk to you both about something we did earlier, a few weeks ago, just before the season. I challenged everyone to pick a conference winner for all 10 conferences across. Now we had a couple of weeks ago we looked into it. We did a little bit of a catch up. Well, at the weekend, it all comes to a head when it's conference championship weekend, which I know that Sam's looking forward to, and absolutely none of the rest of us are because we're going to be just be sat home watching. Sam's going to at least have some investment in it this weekend. Are you looking forward to it?
Obviously. Well, yes and no. I'm hoping that it doesn't play out the same way it did the last time we played Georgia, but
True, true. I
but
hope that.
we've learned how we know what not to do.
Hopefully
So
that's throw your shite on the field when you don't get your way.
If you do lose, though, think about it this way, though. You're going into the playoffs, into the second round with some momentum.
but if we lose,
If you lose the SEC, you're in the playoffs anyway, aren't you? Let's be honest. So if you lose, you've got to play your first round game. You don't get a bye, do you?
mm,
So you would be going into the second round with some momentum. So just think about it like that. Like the New York Giants did a few years ago and won the Super Bowl.
true.
I'm just trying to I'm
Um,
just trying I'm just trying to cushion you forward just in case something bad happens.
we can never be too sure whether you're trying to be nice or make a somehow a subtly sly point there to bring someone down. But just thought I'd keep us on track on where we're at with this weekend, who stands to gain what, etc. So the AAC championship between Tulane and Army, only Nick is in this one. Nick chose Tulane as conference winners. Nobody chose Army. Everyone else went with Memphis.
So what you're saying there is if Tulane win, Nick is extremely un-American for supporting a team that beat the Army
And the Navy.
and the Navy.
He's just it just gets worse for him.
All we know is that Nick isn't offended by the Air Force currently.
Don't want to know how he thinks about them. Not at this rate, anyway. Then, shall we go in order of just conferences, or do you want to go in power? Shall we do group of six, power four split? Does it
Do
really
power
matter?
conference, then do group of five.
Okay. So next up, we've got the Conference USA. Western Kentucky take on Jacksonville State.
You had Jacksonville, didn't you?
I went with Jacksonville State. Egg and Gary both stood by Western Kentucky.
Let's go Hilltoppers. Let's go Big Red.
Significant person missing so far. I've got one. I've got one still in it. You've got
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
still in it. Nick's got one still in it. Gary's got one still in it. Significant person missing, but it's
This is the
okay.
point where Texas win the Natty and then he just lords it over us next year.
It's
Exactly.
okay when we're on the Mac.
Oh, I got this one.
Miami, Ohio versus Ohio.
Is that a rivalry game? Rival extended hate week?
It's just no one cares. No one cares for the whole state. It's a terrible state, Ohio.
Based on past experience, Jim Harbaugh's probably going to get another sort of like email from the NCAA for this game, doing something wrong, watching it on his telly or something.
So Miami, Ohio. The winner was voted as the winner by Egg, Gary, and Sam. Ohio on its own, nobody, because Nick and I chose Toledo. The Mountain West, UNLV versus Boise State. Only one person didn't choose Boise State, but I made a couple of nice friends who also support Fresno State out of it, so I am grateful.
Didn't you choose Fresno just to spite me?
No, I chose Fresno because there was a couple where it was as all of them were coming through. I was like, everybody's gone for this one. I want to be different. So it wasn't a personal thing where I was just like, "Oh, do you know what? I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna choose Boise State. Eggs chose Boise State. Fuck Boise State. Um, it was just that everyone's chosen it. Why not be a little different?
Fresno have had a really down year as well. So during preseason, that probably was the firm choice. I don't think a lot of people had UNLV for being the other team in it.
I think
But like,
they were the third choice team
Yeah,
in terms of favourites, weren't they?
yeah,
UNLV.
yeah.
but like I said, I made some nice friends who support Fresno State out of it. So I'm the real winner here. That's all I'll say.
It's supposed to be a lovely place, Fresno. That wasn't me being sarcastic. It's supposed to be really quite nice. Quite
The
nice.
Sun Belt to finish off the group of six.
I feel like I should get
Marshall,
half a point.
Marshall, and Louisiana. No, you no, it's not how this works, Sam. It's not how this works.
I should have backed them. But to be fair, again, if you're going into the preseason element, there was no way that anyone thought Louisiana were going to be in there,
Exactly.
Yeah.
or Marshall for that fact.
Exactly. So nobody is eligible at this point.
You do owe Nick an apology here, though,
No.
because Nick, from what I can gather, Nick was the only everyone chose App State and someone else, I think,
Is that North Texas?
North Texas. Nick chose Old Dominion, even went and watched Old Dominion, and you've been rinsing him for it, and yet Old Dominion has a better conference record than any of our choices.
Who
Fair
did
point.
I choose?
North Texas.
I thought I went Arkansas, Red Wolves.
That's the one.
So yeah, I mean anyone who went. So no, my team had a better bloody record.
Oh, sorry. So then, okay, Old Dominion had a better record than App State, so it had a better record than Nick's, than Fletcher's choice.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Get out of here with the Fletcher's choice. You also chose App State.
Yeah, but I've not been rinsing him about Old Dominion.
Well, that's because you know fun. Um,
It's
Gary
because
go?
I'm more interested in rinsing Notre Dame.
Who did Gary go for in this one?
no, that was Texas State. That was Texas State.
Yeah. So
Texas State.
me and Gary got teams that were better than Old Dominion.
Yeah,
That's all right.
go Bobcats.
Right,
But
one game.
to be
Finish it
fair,
off.
Texas State lost to Old Dominion.
Is the Sun Belt the conference that Delaware's going into, or is that the American next year? Because there's two teams joining FCS: Arkansas, no, Missouri State, and Delaware. I think they're both getting into the same conference, but I think it might be the Sun Belt or the American.
No idea. Um, Going on to Power Four, ACC, your championship game is Clemson SMU. We all laughed at Nick for saying Clemson, and Egg, you also said SMU.
Yeah, you all laughed at me when I
I,
said SMU.
I don't know, you might not have laughed at him for it, but I'm dragging you all down with me. I've spent too much time laughing at Nick. I need some help. Um,
Who did Gary choose?
have a guess. Put it this way, Gary was wrong before we got out of the aeroplane in Dublin,
They got two
at the
wins.
airport in Dublin.
I think I went
They-
I went with Miami for this, didn't I?
yeah, which was
You
actually
did.
quite a good choice.
It
Yeah, but
was.
then they buggered it at the very end because if they'd have won that game, they'd have been in the conference.
Well, if Louisville would have actually genuinely turned up in the games that mattered, so what shoulda, woulda, coulda.
What
Um,
these schools needed to do was just change conference because that looks like the thing to do in the power conference, doesn't it? Change conference and then just make it to your conference championship.
It's a good thing to do, to be fair.
Yeah,
um, so it's just you with SMU and Nick with Clemson who were left in that one.
massive riding on the playoffs for this one as well.
The B1G, the Big Ten. Speaking of people who were laughed at and ridiculed, abused and bullied for their opinions. Speaking of those so-called Michigan fans who rode with Ohio State, not me,
And
not me.
I remember sitting on this very podcast and saying Oregon would struggle in the Big Ten because it's not like the Pac-12.
Yep.
And how wrong have I been?
So, so you know the meme of the guy who stands up at the desk recently that says the thing. It's how I felt when I went with Oregon and I said, "No, I'm not doing it. I can't bring myself." And this is why I'm happy to be like I'm happy to have one left. But if this is the one I have left, I am on it. I am the only one who chose. So it's Penn State, Oregon. All of you fuckers chose Ohio State, who are no, still not there, still not there, and I chose Oregon.
How funny would it be if this is the game that Penn State decide to turn up to? The first big game ever for them to actually be like, yeah, James Franklin's like, yeah, we lose to Ohio State and Michigan every year, but we're going to win the Big Ten this year.
I'd like that.
I wouldn't mind seeing Penn State in with the bye, the least offensive sort of Big Ten school because
I
no
would
one
actually
cares.
put up there. In the Big 12, you have Iowa State and Arizona State. No one was
Who did everyone go for in that? I know I went with Kansas State. I think you went Fletch with Kansas.
me and Gary both went with the Kansas Jayhawks.
I
Yeah.
went with Utah.
Utah, and Nick was Arizona.
Okay.
I remember this because my colleague from British Basketball, Eli, is from Kansas and was very, very happy that you chose Kansas, and then was less happy during the course of the season. Um, there was going into this weekend, there was 250 different combinations that could have made it to this championship game.
Well,
What a conference!
Yes. But and the thing is though, like you look at how much of a struggle it is for Big 12 teams to make the playoffs. I think they're simply being punished because it's a competitive conference. That's a genuinely good fun conference to watch because at the end of the day, most people thought that Colorado would fizzle out and Dion would not get it done because it's the Colorado turned up and killed it this year.
It's a conference that's been put together purely for basketball, but the knock-on effect to that is that it's absolutely brilliant for football because none of them are like they're all the same.
Yeah.
They've all the same resources. None of them are bigger than each other. I think it's probably my favorite conference actually to watch, like as a neutral.
Yeah.
it's like watching the championship in England.
Yeah, yeah.
Um Finally, speaking, then it's like watching the Premier League, which is completely not like that conference. We've got the SEC.
Does that make Texas Man City when they got the money? They just come into it and just run away with it.
Would that make
If it's
Vanderbilt the
one
Bolton
year,
Wanderers of the SEC? Because I quite like that.
if it's one year, you turn up,
We're
go
Leicester.
and win it all, and then you sit back and then you crap for a bit, then you're Leicester. If
Yeah,
you walk in and just dominate out of the bat, then you potentially you are City when we got money. Um,
as long as we don't get the charges.
yet to be determined. Yet
That
to
would
be determined.
that would make North Carolina Blackburn Rovers then, in this analogy.
Quite possible. Yes.
South Carolina have only ever won one conference championships, and that was the ACC.
It'd also make Oklahoma the Man United because they used to be good and now they're a bit pantry.
And that would make Michigan the Exmouth town. Also,
No,
also, I know that there's a lot of people on this podcast from America. If you are one of the four people that voted for Exmouth Town in the Sickos poll 2 months ago, please do DM me because I owe you some sort of beer or money or something because that has genuinely tickled everybody at the club.
has it been that long since you've been on that this is the first opportunity you've had to bring it
Yeah,
up?
we got more votes than Lamar Jackson, and they and people in the Sickos Committee Discord were also tweeting at us when we played Willen Rovers the other week, and were screenshotting pictures of our players and putting it on the Sickos Committee Discord. So thank you to everybody in the Sickos Committee Discord as well.
That I have questions. I don't want answers.
There's loads of like blokes in like not like East Devon like I have no idea what a Sickos Committee is, but if they want to back Exmouth Town, they crack
but
on.
but if they're taking screenshots of me,
No, it's they were doing. We've got a player called Ace High, so you can imagine that's quite a good name.
finally though with the SEC, and by the way, no, Man City would be Michigan for reasons. Georgia and
Yeah,
Texas. Georgia and Texas. Hang on, let me. Where's it gone?
SEC is Georgia and Texas.
I may as well. I'm going. May as well. May as well. I'll stick to it. It's fine. I'll have them both on at the same time. Um, SEC is Georgia versus Texas. Egg, Fletch, and Gary all voted for Georgia. Sam voted for Texas, and Nick said Alabama.
We finished fourth.
And finally, and more importantly, the Pac-12.
The
Pac-12 is already decided.
most important division of them all.
The most important division of them all. The Pac-12 has already been decided because there was no championship game. Championship game was last weekend, where the Beavers beat the Cougars. Fletch and Sam are already have a point on the board.
Well, it's probably one of very few points that I'm going to have on the board, so I'll take it.
I'm not spending I'm not spending my time refitting this hat. That's not adjusted to my head anymore. So to end it, walking away from this, Egg, you could walk away with a max 5 points if all of your teams win this weekend. Gary, Sam, and Fletch could walk away with a maximum 4 points. Nick, oh wait, no, he didn't. Could walk away with a maximum 3 points. There's a lot to play for. Um, yeah, that's where we're at. Congratulations, everybody.
And we still got bowl games to come up.
And we've still
Yeah.
got bowl games, but no one cares because Ohio State are not in the Big Ten Championship.
Why we are on the discussion of um, playoffs,
Yep,
the FCS playoffs have begun. They started last week. Just going
yep.
to do a quick rundown of that. New Hampshire lost, so my enjoyment has gone. Montana State are still in it. They're the only defeat team in FCS last season. They play UT Martin. Idaho play Lehigh. And that's kind of the pick of it, really. And Connet, South Dakota play Montana in the other side. The bracket is like
Hmm.
playing up on the screen here, so I can't see all this who's playing and everything. South
Um,
Dakota play Tarleton, and I think, oh yes, Villanova play my favorite named school, Incarnate Word. The bird is the word.
Just to sort of jump back a bit, Delaware will be joining CUSA
Okay, there we go.
from
don't
2020.
care. That's Kennesaw State country.
That's the only two schools. Yeah, they're moving up with Missouri State are joining that as well. Then, so that's the only two schools moving up currently from
Well,
FCS into FBS next season.
welcome to Hooty Hoo
And
Nation, boys.
and can on that, just as a very, 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 very quick question about Delaware, a quick quiz question. Name there's 6 NFL quarterbacks that they have produced over the years. Name the one that is currently still playing in the NFL.
Delaware.
Delaware.
Joe Biden's from Delaware. Is it Joe Biden?
It's not Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's not an NFL quarterback. I don't think.
Well, I've not checked the news recently. A lot might have happened.
Do you know what?
It's not
That's
James
fine.
Winston because he went to Florida State. I do know that.
Nope.
Is it?
Not,
Are they a starter?
Not this season, but they have played at least one game this season as a starter.
This is
Minshew.
where I fall down because I don't watch the NFL outside of the Browns.
Not Minshew.
No, not Minshew. You were on the right lines with the name with Biden's first name.
Joe
Oh, so
Flacco.
Joe Flacco. The other
I'm
five
so smart.
the other 5 NFL quarterbacks that have come from Delaware, Rich Gannon, Jeff Comlow, Pat Devlin, Andy Hall, and Scott Brunner.
In the late list right there.
also got a great nickname as well, the Blue Fighting Hens, or the Fighting Blue Hens, something like that.
Yeah, the Fighting Blue Hens, yeah.
Not as good as the Fighting Camels.
No.
So the entire network's adopted FCS team.
Not even close.
Barrag.
Yes, you have adopted it. You have no choice. This is a
Hello,
dictatorship, not a democracy.
fellow CCAA conference rivals. I'm just checking the ticker. Nothing else has happened in recruits.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So before we go, we'll have a quick look at the college football schedule for this weekend. We have, as I've just said, all the games. Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State, UNLV at Boise State, Tulane at Army, Iowa State at Arizona State, Ohio at Miami, Ohio, Georgia at Texas, somehow in Georgia. That's interesting how that one works. Well, in
Why
Atlanta.
is that in Georgia?
Well, they're all meant to be neutral site-ish stadiums, aren't they, for the conference championship? Um,
Oh, yeah, because it's at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so
yeah, yeah.
it's
So,
not it's not at Georgia State
well,
Stadium.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
in Georgia.
It's just, I do think it's a bit funny though that it's in the state, like that it's still not really. It's somewhat
It's
of a neutral
it's a,
site game. They play there regularly.
it's a lot more in favor of Georgia. Shock.
You have to travel more to the home game that you've
Yeah.
got.
Why not stick it in bloody um Dallas's stadium? I know it's probably already being used, but
Yeah. And plus, you don't want to be the home team at Dallas Stadium. You will probably lose.
that's very true.
So then you got to Georgia, Texas, Marshall, Louisiana, Penn State, Oregon, and Clemson, SMU. Just double checking. I definitely didn't see Ohio State. Just Ohio. Um, in there. Conference championship weekend. Which game other than Sam? You're not allowed to answer Texas, Georgia for this one
Okay.
because the answer's too obvious coming from you with that one. What game are you most looking forward to seeing this conference championship weekend?
Me personally, I think the game that I think could be the most interesting is Oregon Penn State
Yeah.
1v3. I really do think that'll be an interesting game. But me personally, the biggest game of all of them is Louisiana Raging Cajuns against Marshall. That's the biggest of them all. At Cajun Field as well. But no, in terms of any of the big games, it's Oregon versus Penn State. I think is a really going to be a really interesting game this year.
Ah, you're absolutely right. So in reverse, Egg, you can't say the Big Ten championship game because of Michigan being in the Big Ten. Which
And where
game
I
are you
wouldn't
most
go to.
looking forward to? Other than, by the way, also because it feels like also a cop out, you can't say Texas, Georgia.
I've already said the FCS. So I am actually looking forward to Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State. They both got an 8-4 record. It is in Jacksonville. And after I said that the American Conference doesn't exist, I've actually become quite got a bit of a soft spot for it because it's pretty good. So that or the Ohio Derby as well would be quite good.
Yeah. That's also at Ford Field, so it's good.
Yeah,
Never
that's at
mind.
5 p.m. UK time as
That
well. So
honestly, that reminds me that we're on a long weekend because we're playing Thursday night football. So I was thinking, are we away this? Are the Lions away this weekend? But no, we play Thursday night. It'll get done by on the Friday. Um, I am
That
okay.
quite
the Big 12 game could be very interesting. 15v16, 10 and 2s. And
no,
that's
that one's
actually
massive.
that's at AT&T Stadium.
That's massive, and that could be well. There we go. That's why you're not using AT&T Stadium. Um,
Arizona State. Arizona State. Not Texas State. Arizona State are using AT&T.
the
But
but
that
that
means
has
Arizona's going to lose, aren't they?
such major implications for who may or may not make the playoffs. And I think what's the other one? There's another one that I think had quite. If for example, if Clemson win,
SMU Clemson.
SMU Clemson, if Clemson win that, that could have quite serious implications for certain teams who may or may not make the playoffs. Because
if SMU win, they are definitely in. And Alabama are sweating it out. If Clemson win, SMU probably not going to have enough to get into the playoffs. So Alabama would get in. So Alabama are rooting for the Mustangs win, essentially.
And yeah, I'd be with you that. And I'm also very much looking forward to Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky.
Yeah. There is one game I missed off as well in FCS. It's quite a historical one. Not taking Mick for once. The SWAC Championship, which is I think if this is wrong, could someone please correct me? It's the HSBCU championship game.
HSBCU, the
The
bank.
historically black university and college. I may have probably got those letters wrong.
No,
Dyslexia.
HSBCU is a bank. HSBC is a bank.
HSBC
You
is the
mean
bank. Yeah.
HBCU? Unless it's a historically black bank.
I don't know. Southern are
League.
playing Jackson State. Jackson State is obviously the school that Sanders started his coaching career.
Yeah.
They are 10-2, and Southern are 8-4. That's at 7 p.m. UK time zone.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. I was going to say HBCU, fair enough, but HSBCU. HSBC is a bank.
It's down as the SWAC Championship. We'll go with that.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard right, and I'm just got Sam confirmed I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to play UCLA anytime soon.
That's why I don't ever want to go. I don't ever want the United Nations to sponsor Conference USA either, because the last thing you want is the Conference of the United Nation. You start getting into mucky territory at that point. So,
There's the man who supports a team that plays at First Third Stadium.
And and this is coming from a man whose team beat the man who was born on third base. Which also reminds me, we'll close this out with a quote from the great Jim Harbaugh. Some people are on third base and thought they hit a triple, but they didn't. That's the quote.
For anybody that is also missing college football, college basketball has started. Um, do follow your school's teams in all sports. Um, unless you're an Ohio State fan, because you also lost this week to Pitt in a buzzer beater.
You can also join our Discord, and
That one
there's
too.
plenty
Oh
of
yeah,
That
basketball
one too.
chats.
That
yeah,
one
yeah,
too. Sam,
yeah.
you're such a good host.
Yeah. What Sam said, promoting the network and everything, like you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
join, like, you can chat with us, and this is not an act. I genuinely am an idiot like this all the time. Please do come on and talk to me about the Columbus Blue Jackets, because no one at the minute has talked to me about them on there.
No. Um, yeah, okay, we'll do that. All the links are in the bio. If you are listening on audio only, head over to the actual episode, check the little box. All the links are in there. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us, join our Discord, come and chat with us. And do you know what? If you've made it this far, you get to know this. This weekend, after all the championship games are done, after the playoff games are announced, after the final, we have an exclusive announcement happening in our Discord that has relation to this podcast and something we've got coming up in a couple of weeks. So get in the Discord now. And the link's in the bio.